we all need to pay attention to this week's slideshow with the wide receivers, because that is going to be who you want to take in the draft. It's going to define your team. So, Tyler, if you're ready, I'll throw the slideshow up for you.
All right, Wade, here's your first overall pick, potentially number one overall wide receiver. It should be no surprise, Justin. There's really nothing that I need to say about this man. Every season, he's just very consistent, very consistent. I know they drafted Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC. Should that really, tie into this? Not really. I don't think that Jordan Addison, he's probably going to be the wide receiver too, alongside KJ Osborne. So there's not really anything that needs to be said about this man. He is by far not only going to be the number one overall fantasy wide receiver, but also the number one overall fantasy receiver. So don't even sweat it. Last year, Jonathan Taylor, I was so high on him, but Justin Jefferson, he's an eligible. So go with him at pick number one.
You taking Jefferson at number one?
It depends on the slot value. If he's asking for too much, I might go with a lower slot and take Jamar. I'm just kidding. I don't know. In all likelihood, yes, I would say Justin Jefferson to me is the consensus number one wide receiver, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Jamar take a really big leap this year. I don't think he was fully healthy, and I think that the Bengals offense has the potential to be way better than what the Vikings can present. But just far as like total targets and control, I agree, Tyler. I mean, it's hard to beat Jefferson.
All right, going number two, another LSU boy here.
Yeah, another LSU man. I had this guy on my team last year. Now, there was some injury concerns last year about Jamar Chase, a couple of games. But if you just look at his stats from last year, Joe Burrow has that college connection with him. He's, there's a lot of talent on the Cincinnati Bengals roster, especially at the wide receiver. You have T. Higgins. He can also be a top 20 wide receiver. You also have Tyler Boyd, who's one of the best receiver threes in all the NFL. So you're going to see a fully healthy Jamar Chase season. So if you're at pick number two or pick, I would definitely feel confident in taking Jamar Chase. I think he's going to be right up there with, his teammate and Justin Jefferson.
And I have the number two pick in our draft, and
yes, you do.
I am bouncing between Jamar Chase or maybe taking a guy like Austin Eckler or CMC. I haven't made that decision yet. I'll have to do some more research. And I like how you added the half PPR points for Cameron, since he likes to play half PPR leagues. But everybody else plays full PPR, so just double it from there.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because I know that there's a lot of formats. You have half PPR, just standard.
Half PPR is the king. It makes
also have sense. PPR. So, all right, next one is Cooper Kupp. This one was another player that also dealt with injuries and also injury to his quarterback, Matthew Stafford. Pretty much missed the whole entire 2022 season, and after that, it was just a quarterback carousel for Cooper Kupp. But whenever he's on the field, he is an elite wide receiver. I think that if he has a fully healthy season, he could be right there along with, the number one, number two receivers that I had on this list, Jamar Chase, also Justin Jefferson. Cooper Kupp, the times that he's been healthy, just look back 2 years ago when he had the most insane season at the wide receiver position. So as long as Matthew Stafford is healthy, I would definitely feel confident in taking Cooper Kupp. There always is going to be that injury concerns. I do think that's not really concerns about Cooper Kupp. I expect him to be fully healthy. It's just a matter of, is Matthew Stafford going to be the same quarterback like he was at injury? Because it was a very severe injury, so you just don't know what you're going to get out of him. But I do feel confident with Cooper Kupp. There's not really –
we might have lost.
But outside of that, there's not going to be really many wide receivers that are going to be taking his target share. So Cooper Kupp is going to be the main man in Los Angeles.
So if something does happen with Stafford and he's not supposed to return at the beginning of the season, do you still like Kupp at the 3 wide receiver?
I definitely think that there would be some knock. Matthew Stafford, he does have that experience. He has the arm talents. I would probably move out of the top 5, I would have to say, if Matthew Stafford isn't a full go for this season, because the connection is just so real between them. We saw when both of them were healthy in that season that he just broke many records in the fantasy. So, yeah, I would definitely keep an eye on Matthew Stafford's injury, more of Cooper Kupp when looking at Kupp this offseason.
Okay. Number 4. This one
Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, I gave a lot of hype about Bijan Robinson last week. Tyreek Hill is about the same as on the wide receiver position. I am really all in on this Miami Dolphins. Now, the main concern has always been about Tua's, injury concern. It's very similar to what Matthew Stafford has been going in. But Tyreek Hill, even without Tua, has really been a consistent, fantasy wide receiver. The talk going from Kansas City to Miami, was he going to be the same fantasy wide receiver? And he showed it even with a quarterback carousel of, Teddy Bridgewater, we saw as well. So, he has an elite level speed. He's one of the fastest, wide receivers. He also, Jalen Waddle is too. So they're looking at fantasy managers, look at Tyreek Hill. They always have Jalen Waddle on their mind because Jalen Waddle, isn't as good as Tyreek Hill, but he definitely has a lot of upside that he can bring to the table. So I'm just Tyreek Hill. There is some issues off the field too. There's definitely concerns with that, but I'm definitely all Tyreek Hill going into the season. So I would definitely, think about him in the middle of the first round. But if he's there, like pick 8, pick 9, and if you don't take him, you look like a complete fool not taking Tyreek Hill.
Tyler calling everybody out if you pass on Tyreek Hill in the first round. Remember that. Remember that.
Might as well do it again.
I believe he ended last year's fantasy season as the number 1 wide receiver. So let's see if he can repeat it. Number
5, Stefon Diggs. I feel like this guy has always been a top 5 fantasy wide receiver in my rankings. This has been one of his favorite targets in the past seasons. Looking at his stats, that's just absurd. 11 touchdowns. It feels like every time that the Buffalo Bills are in the red zone, he's getting a touchdown. So I just think that he's one of the more consistent wide receivers, and that's what you want whenever you have a first-round draft pick. Somebody can be consistent but also provide a lot of upside. And I think that Diggs provides that, especially with the connection that he has with Allen and, the absolute, ball hawk that he is. He has a lot of the target share. The Gabe Davis, I'm not really worried about him. He's had a couple of games that really caught fantasy managers' eyes. So I just don't really think that Gabe Davis is that. I think that Stefon Diggs is for sure and by far the wide receiver 1 on this team. So I would definitely feel confident in picking Diggs heading into the fantasy season as well. So that's my top 5 receivers. Next week, we'll get into the quarterbacks.